It was raining that morning. Not a soft drizzle, but a heavy, angry storm that matched the weight pressing down on everyone seated inside the chapel. The scent of lilies and damp wood filled the air. My coffin was polished, closed tight, resting under a white arch of roses that Amy used to say were my favorite. But they weren't. I always preferred tulips. She knew that too. I watched them all from the edge of the room. It's strange, being dead but present. Some kind of cosmic joke. I wasn't supposed to be here, not like this. But here I was, silent, unseen, forgotten by most. Except the echo of my own soul that refused to rest. Mark stood at the front, dressed in black. Eyes dry, his face carved in stone. He looked right through the crowd, like he didn't see any of them. Not even me, not even my coffin. He was waiting for someone. And when the chapel doors opened again, she walked in. Amy. Her black dress hugged her like morning was just another event to dress up for. Her heels clicked on the stone floor, slow and deliberate, as if each step toward Mark was part of some rehearsed finale. They locked eyes. She nodded once, and then he did it, right there, in front of my body, in front of the world. He chose her. He reached for her hand like it had always belonged to him. No shame, no hesitation, just truth in its ugliest form. He didn't even speak. The silence screamed louder than any words could. People gasped. Catherine, my sister, clenched her fists until her nails dug deep into her palms. Michael, my childhood friend, leaned forward like he couldn't believe what he was seeing. But no one moved. No one stopped them. Because deep down, they all knew. Maybe they always had. Maybe I was the only fool in the room who thought Mark ever really belonged to me. I remembered the night before the accident. I had stayed late at work. Mark said he had a headache and needed rest. I believed him. I believed a lot of things I shouldn't have. The roads were slick when I drove home, my mind foggy with worry and exhaustion. Then came the flash of headlights, the scream of brakes, the sharp twist of metal. And then, nothing. When I opened my eyes again, I wasn't in a hospital. I was here, watching my own funeral, listening to whispers of she was too young, and what a tragedy. But it wasn't the accident that killed me. It was that moment, watching the man I loved choose Amy in front of everything that remained of me. And as if the universe wasn't done humiliating me, I felt a warmth inside. Not pain, not sorrow, something else. A second chance. A flicker. Rebirth. Not in the same body. Not even the same form. But a chance. I didn't ask for revenge. I didn't scream or beg. I just left. I left my last words on the wind, whispered, into the ears of those who would listen. And then I walked away from the chapel, from Mark, from Amy, from everything. And this time, I wouldn't come back. The first breath in my new life was strange. Like inhaling after drowning. I was no longer myself. Not in the way people knew me. My hands looked different. My voice wasn't mine. I stood in front of a mirror in a small rented room above a flower shop, staring at the reflection of a woman with auburn hair and quiet, fierce eyes. Her name was Elise, and now so was mine. No one knew Elise. She had no past, no trail, no friends or enemies. Just a new face and a pulse. I had no memories of this body's history, because it had none. Only mine, woven deep into the soul that refused to sleep. It was a rainy Tuesday when I saw him again, Mark. I had followed the whispers. Catherine had taken to posting photos online of her and Michael, and through them, I pieced together Mark's world. He hadn't left Amy. In fact, they were already living together. Less than 2 months after I died, my name had become a distant memory, A cautionary tale they avoided mentioning. Mark now worked at a private architectural firm in the city. The same job, same clients, same charm, but his eyes looked heavier, like he hadn't rested in weeks. I would have felt bad for him once. That part of me was gone. I applied to the same firm. Elise had the perfect resume. It wasn't hard to craft it. I remembered enough from my own work to build a believable profile. Interviews were easy. People believed in confident smiles and well-placed compliments. Mark didn't recognize me when I walked into the office that Monday. Not really. Maybe something flickered in him. A pause. But he shook my hand without hesitation. "Welcome to the team," he said. His voice hadn't changed. It still had that low calm I used to find comfort in. Now it made my skin crawl. Amy called him at noon. He answered with a softness I never received. I pretended to focus on the paperwork in front of me, but I listened. Her laugh was on speaker. She was already planning a trip to Italy. He said yes, just like that. Italy. He and I had talked about going there for years. Every time we got close to planning it, something always came up. Work, family, life. But for Amy, there were no hesitations, no excuses. Later that week, I followed him. He met Amy at a wine bar near the harbor. They sat in the corner, hands entangled, drinks untouched. She leaned in close, whispering something that made him laugh the way he used to when we stayed up, late watching old movies. But then something shifted. Amy's phone lit up on the table. She glanced at it, then put it face down without answering. Her smile faded for just a second. Mark noticed. "Who was that?" he asked. "No one," she said quickly. But I saw it, the crack in her perfect mask. And just like that, I knew she had secrets too. Maybe I didn't need revenge. Maybe I just needed truth. So I began the quiet unraveling. Nothing explosive, nothing cruel. Just a mirror held up to each of them. Small details that would haunt Mark. Late at night, subtle slips of information. Names that shouldn't be known. References to Italy. A familiar scent I wore that used to drive him wild. And in between the moves I made against them, I began to find pieces of myself again. Elise wasn't just a mask anymore. She laughed in ways I hadn't laughed before. She walked differently, spoke sharper, stronger. There was power in invisibility, but power has a price. And Catherine, she was starting to suspect something. Catherine always had this sharp instinct. Growing up, she was the one who always found the missing item, the secret note, the lie hidden in a smile. So it didn't surprise me that she started to feel something off about Elise. The first time we met again, truly met, was outside her bookstore. She ran a little place called Wren's Nest, nestled between two antique shops. It smelled like old paper and cinnamon. I hadn't planned on seeing her that day. I was just walking by, but the door opened and there she was. Hair tied up, face tired but calm. "Elise?" she said, catching me by surprise. "From Mark's office, right?" I nodded, careful to keep my expression polite. "Yes." Small world. She studied me. That long, deep stare that had always made me nervous as her. "Sister." I held her gaze this time. "You remind me of someone," she said, tilting her head. "I get that a lot. You look like her." Her voice cracked slightly. I offered a soft smile, gentle enough to pass, but distant enough to keep her guessing. "Maybe I'm just a ghost in good lighting." Catherine didn't laugh. She just watched me for a long second. "Come in." I was making tea. I stepped into the warmth of the shop, my chest tightening. The shelves still had the same mismatched labels. A framed photo of the two of us, taken 3 summers ago at the lake, still sat by the register. She hadn't taken it. "Down, you and Mark," she said quietly as she poured tea. Seemed happy. Before everything, I didn't answer. I couldn't. My hands wrapped around the mug she gave me. More for comfort than the drink itself. "I think about her a lot," she continued, voice gentler now. "More than I expected. It's strange what you start to notice when someone's gone. All the things you missed while they were right in front of you." There was so much weight in her words. It nearly crushed me. I wanted to scream, to tell her it was me, that I was right there, breathing and breaking all over again. But I couldn't. If I said it now, it would all unravel too soon. I wasn't ready. Instead, I left a note, quiet and folded, tucked into the back of a poetry book she once gave me, marked with a pressed tulip inside. She wouldn't find it today, but one day she would, and then she'd know. That same evening, I found something that made everything stop. Amy, with another man. It wasn't subtle, wasn't even hidden. She was on the pier, laughing, holding hands with someone I'd never seen before. He was tall, confident, younger than Mark. They kissed in plain sight. I watched from across the street, heart hammering. Not from jealousy. No, that was long gone. But from pure, burning clarity. She was cheating. All this time, while Mark was building her a future, she was rewriting her own. I snapped a photo, just one. Then I walked away, but not before I sent it. Anonymous email, no message, just the photo. Sent to Mark's inbox. He didn't open it that night. He was home, drinking wine, probably waiting for her. But I knew the exact moment he did, because the next morning he didn't show up to work. And Amy, she did, but her smile was broken. I didn't feel satisfaction. I didn't feel revenge. I felt empty, because the man who had betrayed me was finally broken. And all I felt was nothing. But the game had changed, and now Catherine was looking for answers. The bookstore was closed early that day. Catherine's back in 15 sign hung on the door, but 15 turned into 45. I waited across the street, leaning on a bench like any other stranger passing through. She hadn't gone far. I'd seen her leave, coat clutched tight, a paper folder in her hand, and something about the way she walked. Fast but not rushed. Focused but hesitant. Made it clear she was chasing something. She was chasing me. That night, I left a second clue. I returned to her apartment building just past midnight. She always kept a journal, leather-bound, navy blue, pages filled with her neat handwriting and sharp observations. I knew exactly where she hid it. I didn't take it. I only added one line on a fresh page. Not all ghosts haunt with chains. Some just want to be seen. No signature. No explanation. Then I left a tulip in a vase by her windowsill. By morning, I watched her find it. She didn't cry, but she didn't smile either. Her fingers traced the stem, slowly, thoughtfully. Then she opened the journal and froze when she saw my line. Her lips moved as she read it again and again. Then she sat down hard on the edge of the couch, the silence folding over her like a heavy blanket. She knew, or at least, she was dangerously close to knowing. Meanwhile, Mark's world was beginning to fracture. He hadn't spoken to Amy in 3 days. She still showed up at the office, like nothing had happened, but her face was pale, her voice tight, her patience shorter than ever. She snapped at the receptionist, ignored the junior designers, and barely looked at Mark's office door. Mark, he was unraveling. I passed by his office once, uninvited. The lights were dimmed, blinds closed. He was sitting in his chair, staring at his monitor, but not working, just staring. I knocked softly and pretended to be surprised to find him like that. "You okay?" I asked. He looked up, eyes bloodshot but dry. You ever feel like you've been living a lie, Elise? All the time, I said, and meant it. He didn't laugh. He just nodded, like my answer made sense, in a way nothing else did. You know what's worse than losing someone? He said, after a pause, realizing you never really had them to begin with. For a second, I felt a stab of old pain, not sympathy, just memory. He was finally feeling what I had felt. But instead of justice, it felt hollow, like winning a battle no one knew was happening. Then, everything flipped. Amy came to me. She caught me after lunch, near the elevators. Her lipstick was smudged, her perfume sharp, like panic. Can we talk? I nodded. She led me to the rooftop, garden of the building, quiet, usually empty, a view of the city stretching out like glass and steel bones. I think someone's trying to ruin me, she said without preamble. I raised an eyebrow. Why would someone want to do that? She looked at me like she was measuring every word. Because of Mark. Because of how we began. I stayed silent. I know how it looks, she continued. But I loved him. I do. And I didn't mean for any of this to start while his fiancée was still alive, I said softly, cutting her off. Amy flinched. You don't understand. It was complicated. He wasn't happy. She didn't see him anymore. I took a step forward, letting my voice drop. Or maybe you just took what wasn't yours and dressed it up in lies. Her eyes widened. In that split second, I saw the flicker of recognition, like she had heard my voice before, like she felt the truth brushing up against her skin. But she didn't say it. She just backed away, shaken. Who are you really? She whispered. I didn't answer. I just turned and walked away, because the past wasn't done speaking yet, and someone else had started listening. Catherine didn't knock when she came to my apartment. She didn't hesitate, didn't wait for an invitation. She just opened the door and stepped inside, like she owned the floor beneath her feet. She was holding the tulip. I stood in the kitchen, halfway through boiling tea. I no longer needed. Our eyes met, and in that moment, the air shifted. No more pretending, no more masks, just two sisters in a room, both born from the same fire, and buried in different kinds of silence. You left this, she said, placing the tulip gently on the table like it was a relic. I didn't move. I knew you'd find it. You've always left trails. You think they're subtle, but they never are. I smiled faintly. I wanted you to find me. She sat down, not asking permission, and pulled out the journal. Flipping to the page with my message, she placed her fingers on the words. Tell me it's true. I nodded once. It's me, Kath. Tears didn't come right away. She stared at me for a long time, eyes wide, the muscles in her jaw trembling slightly. How? I don't know. I just woke up. Different face, different name, but everything else, the pain, the memories, it's all still here. Catherine stood up, paced once, then twice, trying to make sense of it. I thought I was going crazy. The handwriting, the tulip, the scent you used to. Where? God, Elise, why didn't you just tell me? Because I wasn't ready, I said quietly. Because I didn't come back for forgiveness. I came back to finish something. She turned to face me, her voice trembling now. What did they do to you, really? So I told her. Everything. The nights Mark said he was working late when he wasn't. The text messages I once glimpsed and ignored. The growing distance between us that I thought was stress. And how Amy, my best friend, slowly became a shadow in our house before stepping into my place entirely. Her hands were clenched by the end of it, her voice hollow. And he chose her at your funeral. In front of everyone, I said. Like I had never existed. She looked at me, fury clouding her features. So what now? You want revenge? No, I said, and meant it. I want the truth to tear them apart on its own. I want them to live in the reality they built. Silence stretched between us, until Catherine reached across the table and gripped my hand. Then let me help you. The next day, Catherine went to visit Amy. They met in a cozy cafe near the university district. Amy didn't look thrilled to see her, but she put on her usual performance. Smile, hug, charm. It was all hollow. Catherine played her part too, pretended to worry, pretended to care. Then she dropped the bomb like a stone in a still pond. You know Mark's been investigating you? Amy's expression twisted just enough. Confusion, then fear, then rage. What are you talking about? He thinks you've been lying. About Italy, about someone else. I just thought you should know what he's saying behind your back. Amy's eyes narrowed. That's not true. Catherine leaned in. Then, why are you panicking? By the end of that conversation, Amy's foundation was already cracking. And Mark, he finally opened the second envelope. I'd left it in his mailbox. Inside was an old bracelet, one he gave me the night he proposed. He told me it was custom made, one of a kind, but Catherine had found the exact same bracelet on Amy's dresser 2 months ago, still in the box. Inside the envelope I wrote, one of a kind, just like your lies. I watched him from across the street. He stood frozen in his driveway, the envelope shaking in his hand. His face was pale, sweat gathering at his temples. That was the moment I saw something different in him. Not guilt, not regret. Fear. He was starting to wonder if the past wasn't just haunting him, it was chasing him. Mark didn't come to work the next day. He called in sick, said he wasn't feeling well, but I knew better. I had seen the way his hands trembled when he read the note, the way his eyes darted around like he was expecting a ghost to step out from behind every corner. I didn't need to haunt him. He was already doing it to himself. Amy, on the other hand, was beginning to fall apart in slow motion. She stormed into the office around noon, pretending confidence, but wearing panic like cheap perfume. She barely acknowledged anyone, even brushed past me with a tension that buzzed under her skin. Something was unraveling behind her eyes. I didn't have to guess. Catherine had told me what happened after the cafe. Amy had driven straight to Mark's apartment, accused him of spying on her, of sending people to follow her. She shouted about betrayal, hypocrisy, trust. Mark didn't fight back. He just stood there, silent, as if the words bounced off him like soft punches on a corpse. Then, finally, he asked her a single question. Were you ever going to tell me about the man on the pier? She froze. No lie came fast enough, and that. Silence was the answer. Now they were sleeping in separate rooms. Amy had moved into the guest bedroom. Mark had started locking the door at night. Neither of them admitted it, but their house had turned into a tomb. And still, I wasn't done, because it wasn't just about watching them fall apart. It was about making sure they never found peace in the ruins. So, I paid Michael a visit. He worked at a local radio station, easygoing, still charming in that effortlessly broken way. He had been my friend once, maybe even something more, if things had gone differently. After my death, he had faded into the background, quieter than most, but never cold. He didn't recognize me at first either, but there was a flicker when I laughed, something familiar about the way I tilted my head. You remind me of someone, he said. I get that a lot. We talked for over an hour. About music, about the city, about betrayal in vague terms. I told him a story, fiction, I claimed, about a woman who died too soon. Betrayed by the two people she trusted most. He didn't say much, just listened, eyes dark and thoughtful. Then before I left, he said something that made me pause. "I ever saw her again," he said, voice low. "I'd tell her I should have said something. I should have stopped them. But I was a coward." That night, Catherine called. Her voice was rushed, shaky. "You need to hear this." She had followed Amy, not far, just to a hotel on the edge of the city. Amy had checked in under a different name, and the man she met there wasn't just some fling. He was older, wealthy, married. "I recorded them," Catherine said, guilt thick in her voice. "I know it's wrong, but this isn't just cheating. It's manipulation. He's the one who got her the job at the firm. He's been paying for her apartment since before you died." Silence stretched between us. I couldn't breathe. It wasn't just that Amy had betrayed me with Mark. She had been playing a longer game, one I had never even seen. I had died thinking she took what was mine, but now I knew she had never wanted what I had. She wanted more. She used Mark to climb. She used me to get close. And now she was slipping. Piece by piece, she was losing control. I didn't feel rage anymore. I didn't want revenge. I wanted a reckoning, and I was almost ready. The pieces were scattered and shaking, and all I had to do was tip them over the edge. One final push, subtle, devastating. The evidence Catherine had gathered sat neatly inside a manila envelope. Photos, audio clips, copies of transactions, apartment leases under false names, emails that Amy had thought she deleted. It was enough to destroy reputations, careers, lives. But I wasn't going to send it to Mark, not directly. Instead, I gave it to Michael. We met again at the park near the river, the one I used to go to when I needed silence. He was sitting on a bench, sunglasses on, jacket zipped to his chin, like he wanted to disappear into the background. I handed him the envelope without a word. He flipped through the contents, his expression stiffening with every page. The pictures of Amy and the older man, the hotel keycards, the payments, the soft audio clips, just enough to make the truth undeniable. When he finished, he looked up at me, something in his eyes sharper than before. "You're not just some stranger, are you?" he asked quietly. I smiled, just barely. "Does it matter?" "I guess not," he said. "But why me?" "Because Mark will believe it from you," I replied. "And because I know you won't lie to make it easier." He looked at the photos again, then nodded slowly. "I'll do it." I didn't thank him. I just walked away. By the next evening, everything detonated. Michael sent the envelope to Mark with a short note. "Thought you should know who you're building your future with." Mark opened it in his office. I watched from my desk as his face fell, color draining from his skin, like water circling a drain. He didn't speak, didn't move for several long minutes. Then he got up, left the building without saying a word, and didn't come back. Amy followed him home. That much I knew. I didn't need to be there to imagine the scene. His rage, her lies, the storm that tore through the house they once pretended was built on love. But something unexpected happened next. Catherine called me that night, her voice strained, breathless. "She's gone," she said. Amy left, packed a suitcase and disappeared. Mark doesn't know where. No calls, no goodbye. Just gone. I was silent for a moment. She'll resurface. She always does. People like her can't live without someone to bleed. But what struck me wasn't that Amy had vanished. It was Mark. He didn't call the office, didn't post anything online, didn't even try to explain. He just shut down, and 2 days later, he showed up at my apartment, I opened the door slowly. He looked ruined, like someone who hadn't slept in weeks, whose foundation had finally given way. "Elise," he said, voice hoarse. I don't know why I came here." I stepped aside without a word. "Let him in." He sat on the edge of the couch, his shoulders heavy, his hands limp in his lap. "I thought I knew her," he said, not looking at me. "I thought I understood everything, but now I feel like I never really knew anyone at all." I sat across from him, watching the cracks widen. "There's this—" "Wait," he continued. "Like I did something terrible, but I can't undo it. Like it's too late to fix any of it." I tilted my head, voice calm. "What do you think?" "You did." He looked up at me then. Really looked. Like he was seeing me for the first time. And something flickered in his eyes. Something almost like recognition. "I chose the wrong person," he whispered. "At the worst possible moment. I betrayed someone who would have never done that to me." Silence fell between us like a curtain. I stood up, walked over to him, and placed a single tulip on the table beside his hand. He stared at it, unmoving, and I leaned in, my voice like a memory against his ear. "Not all ghosts come to haunt. Some just come to say goodbye." Then I walked to the door and opened it. "You should go." And for the first time in his life, Mark didn't argue. The air felt lighter after he left. Not like a burden had been lifted, but like a wound had finally been cleaned. Raw, stinging, but no longer festering. I sat in the silence of my apartment, the tulip still resting on the table, and let everything settle. For the first time since I had woken in Elise's skin, I didn't feel rage. I didn't feel haunted. I just felt here. Catherine called later that night. "Are you okay?" she asked, her voice softer now, like a thread between two hands. "I think so," I said. "I feel finished." "He knows," she said. "He really knows now." "Yeah." There was a pause. "What happens to you now?" she asked. I didn't know. That was the honest truth. I had built this life around silence, revenge, and shadows. And now that everything was exposed, the silence felt less like a weapon and more like an echo. But maybe that was the point. Maybe now I could finally live without chasing ghosts or becoming one. "I think Elise finally gets to be someone real," I said. "Not a disguise, not a second chance, just a person." "You deserve that," she whispered. She offered to visit, but I told her not yet. We'd see each other soon, but this part of the story needed to end quietly, just the way it started. 3 weeks passed. Amy didn't come back. Rumors swirled. Office gossip, whispers on social media, speculation about her relationship with that man, about her running off, but nothing concrete, nothing confirmed, like she was never real to begin with. Mark quit the firm. Michael told me he'd moved to a cabin outside the city. No forwarding address, no farewell, just an absence. I didn't mourn him. I had already done that at my funeral, at his betrayal. At the moment he chose Amy, while I lay in a coffin, not cold enough to erase the love I once had for him. One morning, I went back to the lake, the one from that photo Catherine kept by her register. The sun was just coming up, the sky pink and heavy with mist. I stood at the water's edge, slipped off my shoes, and let the cold touch of the lake reach my toes. I whispered the last words I'd ever speak as the girl I used to be. "I forgive you, but I'm not waiting anymore." And then I turned away from the past for the final time. No grand ending, no dramatic storm, just a quiet release. Elise walked away from the lake with her shoulders high, her eyes forward. Not a ghost, not a lie, but a woman reborn, who had already buried herself once, and would never do it again. The end.